Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon FireRed. Yo, champ in the making. Sabrina's Pokemon use Psychic power instead of Force. Fighting Pokemon are especially weak against Psychic Pokemon. They'll get destroyed before they can even aim a punch, which is why the Fighting Dojo is not the main gym here in Saffron, I believe. In the last part, we took care of the extraordinarily lengthy Silph Co dungeon, and now it's time for us to move on from Saffron to taking care of the gym. Most of the fights here are technically optional as long as you walk along the bottom of the rooms that you teleport to and from. Starting off though, we got a new Pokemon, Slowbro, the evolution of Slowpoke, Water, Psychic, weak to Bug, Ghost, Grass, Electric, and Dark. It's got a pretty decent defense and special attack stat and HP to boot. It's not a bad Water type or Psychic type. There are playthroughs where I've used it over, say, Vaporeon, even though I don't like to nowadays. Now this, like Silph Co, is a giant teleport maze that you're supposed to find your way around in. My strategy, though, is just walk to the teleporter on the opposite side of the room that eventually gets you there anyway. Technically, it's not the fastest, but it does allow me to find them all along a linear pathway. I, to this day, don't know the actual way through this without doing this, just because it's easier this way and it gets me more experience points. As for the Pokemon you're fighting in here, being a Psychic Gym, you're going to see a lot of the Slowpoke line, the Kadabra line, a couple of Mr. Mimes, and a couple of the Drowsy line. I think that actually... Is that every Psychic type? I think it is. I don't think there's a Butterfree in here at all, unless I'm just forgetting about one. As long as you bring something with a Dark-type move like Bite, you're going to be pretty good. In the original Gen 1, this was arguably the hardest gym, just because Psychic-type Pokemon were more or less unopposed in that game, barring Bug and Ghost, but they didn't have the move potential to really do anything with that. Dark types were the first ones that were really like, yeah, we got a nail in these Psychic types' coffins. In particular, Chris has Bite for me. I had a vision of your arrival. I have had Psychic power since I was a child. It started when a spoon I carelessly tossed bent. I dislike battling, but if you wish, I will show you my powers. Sabrina in the original Gen 1, just due to how busted Psychic types was arguably also the hardest gym trainer. Starting off, she's got to throw out a Kadabra. This thing has Psybeam, Reflect, Calm Mind, and Future Sight. Future Sight is a move that doesn't actually attack until after 2 moves later. So the big strategy with this thing is, since it's her weakest Pokemon, at least in terms of defenses, for you to take this out and then take damage a lot during the second Pokemon. Psybeam otherwise is the only actively not physical damaging move this Kadabra has, because Reflect just raises, I believe, physical defenses, and Calm Mind raises, I believe, special defense and special attack, I think? It also has the Synchronized ability, so don't throw out any status elements against that thing. Mr. Mime here has Soundproof for an ability, so any sound-based ability attacks aren't doing anything. Barrier, Psybeam, Calm Mind, and Baton Pass. Baton Pass is an interesting choice for a gym leader to have, because what that ability does is it switches out the user and passes any of their temporary stat increases or decreases to the Pokemon that replaces it in battle. However, that also can pass any volatile status conditions like Confusion, Curse, so on and so forth. At least that's how it works in this generation. Gen 5 onwards changed how it worked a little bit, and we'll get to there when we eventually get to that point. For now, though, we got a new Pokemon. This is Venomoth. This is the evolution of Venonat, starting at level 31. Bug, Poison type, so that's weak against Flying, Rock, Fire, and Psychic. It's got an okay special attack and speed stats, but otherwise, nothing special. It's sad that Bug types weren't too good in Gen 1, because Bug types nowadays are some of my more favorite types. Particularly like the Vikavolt line. Vivillon can be pretty useful in the right circumstances. Orbeetle in Gen 8 is also really nice. It's very weak though, hers. It just has Shield Dust, Psybeam, Gust, Leech Life, and Supersonic, but her final Pokemon is easily her most annoying. Alakazam, Synchronized, so don't use status elements. Psychic, Future Sight, Calm Mind, and Recover. I already stated my displeasement with the Starmie back in Cerulean's gym having Recover. But having the Alakazam have one is really, really annoying. I don't like this Pokemon. Thankfully, Recover doesn't have too much PP, so in the case you're doing constant criticals and it's reacting with them immediately, you're probably just going to be in a bit of a stalemate for a while, barring her use of Hyper Potions to restore 200 HP. But ultimately, it's just a war of attrition, because at this point, compared to the Starmie, you should have more things to be able to deal with recovering Pokemon, and your stats are just going to be better to deal with their attacks anyway. Also, I don't think I've talked about Dragon Rage yet. I think I briefly mentioned it, actually, now I think about it, at the start of part 13. Dragon Rage is an interesting ability. It is one of the few Dragon-type moves in the original Gen 1 from my memory. And what it does is that it does a set 40 damage, which makes it really good for early game. That will one-shot most Pokemon probably into Lavender City? Or Lavender Town, technically. I kind of switch between town and city for some of the places in the Pokemon series. I don't know why. You can also get that relatively early on in the game just by grabbing a Magikarp as soon as you can and getting it quickly leveled up, because I believe Gyarados learns Dragon Rage relatively early on. Either way, Sabrina, her Alakazam is really annoying, as you can see just by how it's been dealing with my own team. But again, compared to the Starmie who could use Recover, you have more to deal with at this point, or to deal with it. This loss shocks me, but a loss is a loss. I admit, I didn't work hard enough to win. Your victory has earned you the Marsh Badge. The Marsh Badge makes Pokemon up to level 70 obey you. Stronger Pokemon will become wild, ignoring your orders in battle. Just don't raise your Pokemon too much to avoid that problem. Wait, please take this TM with you. And we get TM04, which is Calm Mind. Psychic power isn't something that only a few people have. Everyone has psychic power, people just don't realize it. I don't know why, but that line in particular really does remind me of the episodes she was in the anime, which were really weird because she shrunk down Ash and turned them into doll people or something along those lines. All I remember is that she really wanted to have a friend, and she befriended the Haunter that Ash had, and that Haunter was adorable. It's also the reason I love Haunter to this day. Either way, with our business here in Saffron concluded, we've explored most of the Kanto map, barring Cinnabar Island. And since the Pokemon League is at the top left of the map, that means the only place we can get to go to a gym is Cinnabar, and there's two ways to do that. Either you can head south of Pallet Town, which is what I'm going to do, or you can head south of Fuchsia through the optional Seafoam Islands dungeon, and then through to the other side. We'll be heading to the Seafoam Islands eventually in this LP anyway, so I want to save that until probably after... actually, I'm not sure if I want to do that after Cinnabar or after Gym 8. I'll get to it. Either way, welcome to Route 21, our first major water route of the series. You'll get tired of these eventually, I'll tell you that for a fact. That guy only has 6 Magikarps, and those patches of grass we saw to the north, I believe are the only place in the game you can catch Wild Tangela, so if you're trying to go for a full Pokedex, remember that. And this particular fisherman has a new Pokemon for us to fight. I think they're in both his first and third slots? This is Sea King. This is the evolution of Goldeen starting at level 33. Pure water type, so it's weak to grass and electric, and it's got an okay attack stat, but I think that's about it. Despite how iconic they are to the typing, given that they were very heavily featured in the Gen 1 anime, the Goldeen line to me isn't much of note. There are much better water types in the series, just look at Vaporeon. Otherwise, though, on this route, you're going to find a lot of Tentacool by surfing. They're the only thing you can encounter while surfing. And fishing, the Good Rod can get you the Krabby Pokemon as well as Horsey. And the Super Rod can get you the Psyduck Slowpoke combo as usual. It can also get you the evolution of Krabby, Kingler, as well as Seadras and Gyaradoses. As for what Seadras are, well, we're about to meet our first one. Seadra is the evolution of Horsey starting at level 32. Pure water type, so again, just weak to electric and grass type. I think its standout stats are defense and special attack? It's nothing spectacular. As I think I mentioned back when we first saw Horsey, the Horsey line didn't get too good until Gen 2, where its evolution Kingdra was introduced, which has relatively balanced stats, I think all above 90 at the base, and it also gained a dragon subtyping, meaning that it was weak to, I think, just dragon, and when it was eventually added in Gen 6, fairy type, because that the water nullifies the ice weakness, if I'm recalling correctly. If you're playing Gen 3 onwards, I'd say go for it, because Kingdra can be pretty worth it for a Dragon type. But, And I don't think I've actually talked about Dragon types too much in general, despite the fact we have one of the more famous ones on our team. Dragon types in the original Gen 1 and 2 were arguably the most broken Pokemon, and still are arguably to this day, given that most pseudo-legendaries are Dragon types. The thing is, compared to other typings, is that, especially here in the original Gen 1, there weren't many Dragon types or Dragon type moves to begin with, and their only weaknesses in Gen 1 were Dragon and Ice, and there's also not too many Ice-type Pokemon. There's a couple of good attacks of the typing that Water types can learn, but the typing itself is rare to find on a Pokemon. Because of that, Dragon-type Pokemon were relatively unchallenged in terms of weaknesses. Moving on, though, we got our next new Pokemon here. This is Tentacruel, which evolves from level Tentacle starting at around level 30, I think. Water poison type, so it's weak to Ground, Electric, and Psychic. You remember me talking about how good defensive-wise Tentacruel was? Tentacruel is even better. I think it's also pretty fast. It's not bad. I have used one, I believe I said before, and it is good. I have other preferences for water types, as you can see just in Vaporeon, but it is still good. Mind you, my entire experience with the water typings is usually just me ignoring other things in effort for Vaporeon because I love its HP stat too much. And this is another new Pokemon. This is Cloyster. This evolves from Shelter when you use a Water Stone on it. Water Ice type, so it's weak to Fighting, Rock, Grass, and Electric. This Pokemon has one of the highest defense stats in the series, I think. This thing is a very good tank. I think it also gets a decent learn set. I think it can learn Hydro Pump later on, which is like the strongest water type move, barring ones that are stronger than it that just do recoil damage. As well as things like Aurora Beam, this is honestly a pretty good water type to grab as well. I'm not exactly sure when I'd say to evolve it, because I forget when Shelter learns some of those moves, but it's a worthwhile Pokemon all the same. Also, while I was saying all that, I was actually trying to find a ranked list on like the highest defense stat Pokemon. Cloyster is still in top 10. Currently the highest is technically a spoiler for Gen 8, but that Pokemon has 250 defense, which is ridiculous. But now it's time to get into something else. You may have noticed, even though this is a water type area, I've had Scott in the front despite him being 4 times weak to water. It's because at level 42, Rhyhorn evolves into Rhydon. I love this Pokemon. First off, look at it. It's just cool looking. And while it's still ground rock type, meaning that it is 4 times weak to water and grass as well as 2 times weak to ice, steel, ground, and fighting, it just gets a really good moveset, and it's got a really high HP, attack, and defense stat. This thing is a very good physical Pokemon. Unfortunately, I think its special attack and defense are relatively bad, as is its speed. But the physical stuff is worth it for me, and I'm also going to give it a pretty okay moveset. I'm finally using Dig, because Dig is good. And I think I'm also going to give it Brick Break, so I can have a fighting type move on something. Yes, I am. Eventually, I think around like level 43, is also going to learn Horn Drill. Or wait, did I already use that? I think I already used it, because I think it's how I took out the Tentacruel now I think about it. Horn Drill is a rare move type that is always a one-hit KO should it hit. To the point where when you use it, it says it's a one-hit KO. I can only think of maybe 4 or 5 moves in the series that are like that off the top of my head, including Sheer Cold from Gen 3. I am risky enough to try using it on certain Pokemon, depending on what the situation is. With that, welcome to Cinnabar Island, our next town, and as you can see, there's the gym. However, we can't enter it. The door is locked. Thankfully, getting information about how to get the key is relatively easy here on the island. We just head into the Pokemon Center, though it's at this point I finally want to buy some Hyper Potions. Hyper Potions heal 200 HP, as I believe I mentioned during the Sabrina fight. And there is a type of potion that heals more, the Max Potion, which heals you to max. But for the cost of the potions, respectively, Hyper Potions are more worth your money because not many Pokemon are going to have more than 200 HP anyway until like level 90 something. So it's just more worth it to get the Hypers. Either way, this lady's bringing up that apparently the key to the gym might be in that Pokemon Mansion to the top left, so we'll be taking care of that in a bit. First off, though, I want to head into this Pokemon lab here. There's a couple of things you can do in here, namely some trades for Pokemon that you can get otherwise. In the meanwhile, I'll just talk about the Pokemon you can find here in Cinnabar. Fishing in Cinnabar gives you some relatively decent Pokemon. Slowpoke, Psyduck, Slowbro if you're playing Leaf Green. Krabby, Staryu, Gyarados. You can find a lot of things around here. I'd argue this is the best place to fish in the game, actually. Unfortunately, we can't do the infamous missing no glitch because we're playing Gen 3, but I don't like glitching out my game, and I prefer to not have my inventory glitched. Also, that guy can teach Metronome, which if you recall from Mount Moon, basically can select any move in the game to use. This guy here is important, though. Hiya! I'm an important doctor. Yes, very much so indeed. Here I study rare Pokemon fossils. All the time I study. You have a fossil for me? Now we can finally use that Helix, Dome, and Old Amber fossils that we've had for a while. And he'll revive them, and all you need to do to revive the Pokemon is leave the lab and come back in. Now, the Omanyte we're about to get is a Rock-Water type that is weak to Fighting Ground, Electric, and Grass. It's got a lot of defense, and I think its special attack is pretty good. And at level 40, it evolves into Omastar. Same typing, same weaknesses, even better defense and special attack. And next, we're going to get Aerodactyl from the Old Amber. Aerodactyl is a rock flying type, which means it is weak to rock, steel, water, electric, and ice, I think? It's fast, and it's got some decent physical attack, but I recall its moveset not being the best. If you chose the Dome fossil back in Mount Moon, you'd get the Pokemon Kabuto, who's also a water rock type, but which has the same weaknesses, of course. And its defense, I think, is its highest stat, and that's nothing special otherwise. At level 40, it evolves into Kabutops, which is still rock-water type. And I think its attack and defense are still its highest stats, but if you have to ask me, the Omanyte line is better. If I recall, it gets a better moveset than the Kabuto line does. With that, now we are in Pokémon Mansion, my overall least favorite dungeon in the game. Because while Silph Co is longer, this place is more tedious. The main gimmick with this place is that there are shutters all over the place that will open and close depending on the state in which you leave a switch. What are the switches? See these statues? A secret switch. Press it? Who wouldn't? That now will alternate the shutters. Where there weren't shutters, there are now, and vice versa. It's not a hard area to traverse or find your way through. It's actually a relatively simple dungeon as soon as you figure out where the shutters are and aren't. The big problem is the encounter rate here is ridiculously high. I hate this place because there's just way too many enemies that you've run into along the way. Love the music, though. As for Pokemon you can find in here, you're gonna find Rattatas and Raticates. You can find Vulpix or Growlithe in here, depending on what version of the game you're playing. You can find the Grimer line. I think you can even find Muck in Leaf Green. And you can find the Coughing line. You can also eventually find Dittos in here. In fact, I think I might even catch one later on. I forget. And we'll talk about that more when the time comes. I swear you're also able to run into a different Pokemon in here, but I think they only added that in Let's Go from my memory. Because I think otherwise you can only catch that Pokemon elsewhere in the game. Also, if my mic ever sounds like it changes here or like I cut myself off, that's because I actually have to restart my audio recording every minute or two, just because the amount of transitions I had to put in this place for the random battles is so high that it lags my editor enough that while the audio is still recording, that I actually desync, which is a problem I first noticed happening, I think when I was doing like the Battle Network games, and I just had to do that every now and then to keep safe. In terms of the Pokemon trainers you're going to run into in here, you're going to find a lot of Scientists, you're going to find a lot of the Magnetons and Magnemite family. I think you'll encounter a couple of youngsters that have like Raticates and a couple of Burglars. Burglars are a relatively new class in the game. By that I mean that I think they only show up here. Maybe one other place later on. They love fire types. They're gonna have a lot of the Charmander line, the Growlithe line, I think a couple of the Vulpix line. Thankfully, though, like I said, this place is relatively short. There's only 4 floors to it, and you barely need to visit some of the floors. In fact, the basement floor 1 here is the last floor we need to visit. There is a nice little detail here, though, in that this place is actually a former lab, and if you read the dialogue, you'll learn that apparently somewhere in South Africa, a rare Pokemon known as Mew was found, which was transported here and had a clone named Mewtwo made. But apparently Mewtwo is too powerful, and we don't know where it is anymore. I wonder what happened with that. Also, I hate this next trainer battle just because of where it's placed. That's mean. I think that is a rotating Pokemon trainer, but in that it'll look different directions. But I always hit it there. Because some Pokemon trainers do rotate where they move, and some just walk. Those who walk and rotate are attracted to the sound of you running, so if you're running near them, they are more likely to look in your direction. I know I'm a bit late mentioning that, given that we're near the end of the main game, but better late than never. And here's the secret key. This is our goal in this area. We can now leave. We also found TM22 Solar Beam, which is a very powerful grass move, but it needs a turn to charge unless the Sunny Day move is active. And here's a Ditto. I don't know why I could have started this battle. Ditto is pure normal type, which means it is weak to fighting. And stats-wise, I think it's all 48. The big specialty with it, as I mentioned back on like Route 15, is that it uses the transform ability to turn into the opposite Pokemon, and I think it mimics the moveset, stats, and typing of that Pokemon at that point. It's not that useful, though, unless you get one that has the imposter ability, which means it's transformed from the start. Its only other purpose nowadays is breeding. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 16, we're going to finish up our business here on Cinnabar before heading elsewhere. See you guys then.